electricity, agriculture, digital infrastructure. This is where we're going to begin with our guest, improving trade flows, not just for Nigeria, but for the wider African continent. So we're happy to have from Amsterdam, Max Koffi, founder CEO of Africa in Motion, and also the founder CEO of the Equal Trade Alliance. Max, of course, is very dedicated to Africans benefiting from their natural resources. Max, it's great to have you. Thank you so much for joining us on the Arise News channel. So, Africa is very dear to your heart, and I wanted us to talk about trade across a number of touch points. I guess starting with customs, Max, and how technology can boost customs operations. Where do you fall on that?
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm happy to be here. Before talking about specific topics like customs or ports and trade corridors, and I'd like to say something very important. When we talk about technology boosting African trade, starting by Nigeria, we have to be honest. Technology does not fix an unequal trade system. It only makes it move faster. So that's very important to understand. You take Nigeria at this moment. Nigeria sits at the heart of African trade, with Lagos ports, a fast-growing SMEs sector, and a central role in the African Continental Free Trade Area initiative. Yet, too much value still leaves the continent, in raw or semi-processed form. So the real issue is not digitization, but who benefits when trade is digitized. That's why I personally and my organization, Equal Trade Alliance, advocate for a new economic model. We call it Equal Trade Economic Model. So as Nigeria digitize ports, customs, fintech, and e-commerce, Nigerian businesses become shareholders in values. So not only supplier. I like to start with that. Sorry for a bit longer introduction.
No problem. Look, let's talk about it. Look, like I said, you're very, very focused on that with your organization. You want to see more value. So why do you, fine, we're still talking tech, but let's touch on that. Why do you think that is? Why do you think much value is lost? Do you think is it electricity? Is it because there's not enough value add? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, the real problem of African countries, of our continent, is that we are participating in this global value chain only from the upstream side. So providing other nations raw materials or semi-finished product, and at fixed, very low prices. Sometimes we negotiate prices. But the real issue for us, the real challenge we need to fix as governments, our people, as entrepreneurs, is to take part and have shares in the downstream side of the value chains. I give you one example. Just Ghana is very close to Nigeria, you know it. Ghana and Ivory Coast are exporting raw cocoa beans to mainly Europe, and most of them arrived here in Amsterdam, in the port of Amsterdam. But Ghana, for example, only makes $800 million by selling the raw materials. The Netherlands, where they only process it into semi-finished product, makes up about 20 billion. And when it comes to world market level, we are talking about more than $130 billion from one raw materials from one African countries. So we need to ensure that we have shares in this 20 billion or 130 billion. That's what I mean by having getting more value from our raw material. So it's about changing the rule of the trade system that has been imposed on African countries. All 54 African countries, including Nigeria, has been put under pressure to accept an unequal trade system. So technology can only help us to speed it up, but not to fix it. To fix it, we need government to take decision to change the rule of the trade policies and entrepreneurs to take part, let's say, at the downstream side of the value chain. That's what I mean with that.
That's a fair point, Max. Okay, I think I was reading, I think I saw you had an interview where you talked about chocolate. So since we're using Ghana and the Ivory Coast, maybe that's a good example. Arise News, every year we go to Davos for the World Economic Forum, and we always bring back chocolates, right? Is the downstream side not down to the value chains in Europe? So because I mean, I don't know if you've had any chocolates from the Ivory Coast or Ghana. They're pretty good, but it has to be said, I think is it not the quality of the final product that is made in Amsterdam or made in Switzerland, using chocolate as an example, that adds to the reason why the value is so high compared to the quality of chocolates in Ivory Coast or Ghana?
Yeah, it has nothing to do with quality. Look, Western countries are protecting their market. So when you take processed chocolate from Ghana or from Nigeria or from Ivory Coast, you take it to Amsterdam or Paris or London, you will face directly import duties of 40%. So how are you going to make benefit? So the real solution is to have shares in the final product. So government in Africa should tell big multinational, Nestle, Mars, you get our raw materials if we get shares in the final products. That's it. That's one solution. The second solution, the second part that can be even faster is that we stop giving our raw material away to Western people and give it to our own people. In Europe, now I am Dutch. Nobody can tell me, Max, you have no right to process chocolate from cocoa from Ghana, from Nigeria, in the Netherlands, process it into chocolate and sell it, pay taxes and send the money back to Nigeria. Nobody can tell me that's not allowed. So that's the second part. We should more involve the diaspora and create what we call producers diaspora own ventures in Western countries so that we take the value, because the money is here. You can sell chocolate in Ghana. There is no money in Ghana. The city of Amsterdam, to give you just one example, the city of Amsterdam, with less than 1 million people, has more money to spend than the whole country Ghana.
That's true. That's true.
So these are two solutions. Or our government take decision like, now we are reforming our trade policies. You get our raw material on one condition. We share the revenue you will make from the finished product, or you don't get it. Second solution is to create our one company, processing company in downstream market like Europe, the US, Asia, and sell our one final product and send part of the money back to Africa.
Oh, well, so, okay, Max. So the thing is this, on the first point, just to take you up on the first solution you're preferring, that they get shares of the revenues from the chocolates that are sold. You use Nestle as an example. Nestle they're here in Nigeria as well. But Nestle is a private company, Max. Why do you think a private company will allow for a government to want to take a share of its profits from its own? Because Nestle has costs of doing goods. It's got its own processes. It's a private company. Wouldn't that be a bit complex? I'll come to the second solution, but what's your answer to the first one?
Yes, it's not complicated. This is what's happened, exactly what's happened when Arab countries decided to have shares in oil. At the beginning, in the year 50, a country like Dubai or Saudi Arabia, they are only getting 1% from oil. And then one day they decide, like from now on, we want 50% of it. And they say it to multinational bigger than Nestle. We're talking about shells of this world. They told them from now on, we share the benefit. Otherwise, you don't get this oil any longer. It was a shock. Companies were shocked. But today, this is what had made Dubai what we see now, Saudi Arabia. But these multinationals are still making billions of benefit. So sharing doesn't mean losing. And that is something we need to take courage. It is our raw material to start from. You can be a company. This is what I'm telling European. Like, okay, you say you have industry. Okay, fine. Eat your industry. Eat your machines. Without our raw materials, you just don't have nothing.
Okay.
So it is about political courage to put it on table. And the problem with our continent is that we are not united. So if Nigeria begins alone, they will tell Nigeria, you know what, bye-bye, we go to Kenya, and Kenya will welcome them. So this is a bit the challenge at that level. But the second part is a faster one, and we can make it happen very, very, very smoothly.
Okay, but Max, on the other point, the what do you say to the counterpoint that, look, okay, Africa has these raw materials. We are a global village. Africa is simply selling its raw materials to countries that will buy them. What about Africa producing its own raw materials, improving its own downstream sector, and then building its markets to rival the markets that are in Amsterdam and other European cities? What about looking inwards and make electricity and all the infrastructure to improve its own markets?
That is ideal, and this is where the equal trade model comes in. We first need to have our own investment capital and don't be depending like what's happened today. You see all African government calling for investors, come and invest in our country, in our economy. We first need, I always say it in a very simple way, we first need to take part of our money back. With that money, we can start industrializing our one continent, process our one products, our one final products, and then put it on the market. Local, regional, and then international market. So it's a strategy. Equal trade model is not the final solution. It's just a path to get rid of dependency. You know, so that is a bit, we need money. Like I told you, Amsterdam has more money than the whole country Ghana. So how are they going to invest in processing? Processing, industrialization cost money, energy, infrastructure, knowledge. So we are not there yet, to be honest. So we first need a transition, get enough own capital, and stop asking people to invest in our continent at their condition. Because when someone invests in Nigeria, where is the profit going after investment? It will take it back. And it's even one of the first conditions when investors come to Africa. What they're asking our government is like, okay, how do we make this sure that we can take our profit out of your country and take it to our own countries? So this is a bit the challenge we are facing now. But the second solution can allow us to avoid all this problem. How many Nigerians are all over the world? You Nigerians are the most active African people on earth. So let's organize ourselves. Let's have in Amsterdam a hub, Nigerian hub, where we process all raw materials coming from Nigeria inside Europe. And we put it on the market, we sell it, and we send the money back to Nigeria. With that money, Nigeria can then finally start industrializing without any external intervention. This is what they have done in China. So who are Chinese compared to African? They have nothing more. We can do this. It's just about being aware of the possibility and just put it in action. We are 200 million African outside of Africa. How many people do you need as commercial representative to set up these businesses?
It's a
You
fair,
know? Yeah.
it's a fair point. It's a fair Max, Koffi, I really appreciate the conversation. Very enlightening. We have to follow up with you and see how this can work. Thank you so much for joining us. CEO, founder, Africa Rising and the Equal Trade Alliance, joining us from Amsterdam. Thank you so much for your time.